The movie is Shelby Oaks, which is written and directed by Chris Stuckmann. The horror film follows Mia Brennan, a woman searching for her missing sister Riley, a ghost hunter YouTuber who disappeared 12 years ago while investigating the abandoned and supposedly haunted town of Shelby Oaks. When a breakthrough in the cold case gives Mia new information on what happened to her sister, she becomes determined to get to the bottom of the mystery despite the dangerous warning signs that truly evil forces are at play. If you didn't already know, this is the feature film debut of Chris Stuckmann, who was previously a YouTube movie critic, that's how he got his start, and is now turned into a horror filmmaker. From what I've seen, people's opinions on this movie are polarizing, where there's a number of people who seem to be kind of keen to shit on it and eager to see Chris Stuckmann fail, and then there are others who want to defend this movie and him until their dying breath. And to a degree, I get it. He goes on YouTube and he critiques a bunch of movies. The natural reaction from people is going to be, okay, you say you know what's good, you say you know what's bad, put your money where your mouth is. Make something that's better than all those films that you critiqued. I completely get that perspective. But as someone who puts out movie reviews on YouTube, I think it's important to remember that ultimately, all that is just one person's opinion. I've seen plenty of movies that are universally praised that I've hated, and those that are universally hated that I've loved. Film is art, and the only way to determine how you feel about it is to see it for yourself, which is what I encourage everyone to do in every one of my reviews, regardless of how I feel about the movie. I have a tremendous amount of respect for what Chris Stuckmann's accomplished on YouTube and now as a filmmaker, and I also think it's okay to be critical of the weak spots in a movie, but also appreciate the positive aspects. Is this the greatest horror movie of all time? No, I don't think so, but I also don't think that's what it was trying to be. I do think that this is an original horror film that's absolutely worth watching, that also happens to support a passionate independent filmmaker. What he was able to achieve with a shoestring budget was incredibly inspiring to me. Of course, the movie was flawed, but I think given that this is his first foray into filmmaking, there's a lot of good to take away from this movie that makes me excited to see what he does next. I loved the way that this movie combined this different blend of media throughout the film, but most heavily in the first act, that runs from found footage to YouTube clips to documentary-style interviews, and finally to a standard high-res horror film. It harkened back to Stuckmann's roots as a YouTuber and now previously an amateur filmmaker, and it was a creative way to tell a compelling story about Riley's disappearance. The film cultivated some solid tension and a strong sense of dread for the majority of the runtime that really fueled the bigger scares of the movie. Much of that was from the way it was shot and the direction from Stuckmann, which I thought was mostly quite good, leveraging a lot of typical horror techniques without overdoing them. While there were a few scenes with the CGI dogs that didn't always look great, I thought the mix of practical effects and CGI was pretty strong overall. The film featured an intense, panicked score of frenetic violins that highlighted the horror elements well, that also perfectly accented the particularly terrifying moments of the movie. I thought Camille Sullivan, who played Mia, did a great job at being truly petrified without her performance coming across as forced. I've seen that a lot of people didn't really like the ending of this movie, and while there was one very specific choice with the dogs that I didn't love, I actually really liked the way that the ending played out. I liked that it wasn't this like, hurrah type of ending that it feels like a lot of horror films seem to have nowadays. I think my biggest issues are with some of the character choices that just didn't make a ton of sense logically or even emotionally, and just the overall character development. There aren't a lot of major characters in the film, but the few that there are don't feel all that deep, and I think that's part of why some of their choices feel a little bit puzzling as you're watching. We don't resonate with some of their actions because we don't really fully understand their perspective. I also had a few issues with the pacing where there were moments that it felt like the movie had a sticky gas pedal that would occasionally lurch the plot forward and then stall at others. Overall, I genuinely enjoyed this movie, and I felt like Stuckmann's strengths vastly outweighed his weaknesses, creating a horror film that was actually terrifying and scary, featured an original, compelling, intense plot, and an artistic style of storytelling that adeptly blends different forms of media. I encourage you all to see this one in theaters while you still can, because it was a seriously fun watch in the movie theater, and also because it supports an independent, original filmmaker that's truly passionate about movies. So go watch Shelby Oaks. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, please like the video, and add a comment letting me know what you thought of this movie or what movie you think I should review next. I put out a movie review each week, so subscribe to stay tuned. Thanks, y'all.